Good day everyone, good day class. This video recording will discuss the lesson on philosophical self. As you already know that we have more or less 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 or 16 lessons already. 16 lessons to be discussed for this semester. And in understanding the self, the first lesson is about on philosophical self. So this video discuss this lesson on philosophical self. Okay? Okay, so the word philosophy comes from the Greek word which means philo, love, and sophia, which means wisdom. So if you will combine the two, you'll have the term philosophy. And of course, it's a Greek word, and there were three great Greek philosophers. They were Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And on our discussion, we'll discuss Socrates and Plato with regards to their definition or understanding of the self. Okay? So let's discuss first Socrates. Okay, Socrates. So Socrates was born in Greece. In Greece, way back 400 or 300 BC, 400 BC if I'm not wrong. He didn't write anything. We know about him through his student Plato. Okay, through his student Plato, who wrote many of his public speeches together with his listeners or students, and one of it is Plato. Okay, um, the term self was not used by Socrates, but he is more concerned of the question, who is man and what is man. Okay? And if you want, you may adapt it as a self, quote unquote. No? But to make it proper, he didn't use the term self per se, but he tried to define what is man. Man, a person, a human being. Okay? For Socrates, he believed that man is composed of body and soul. Man is composed of body and soul. Body, immaterial. A soul is immaterial and body is made of matter. Now, what are the characteristics of the soul? One of the characteristics of the soul that he asserted is that soul is immortal. Immortal. That soul is existed before the body. Okay? And in Plato's work, The Immortality of the Soul, he mentioned there, especially in his works Phaedo and Apology, that the soul was imprisoned in the body. Imprisoned. The soul existed already before the body was created, and when the body was formed during reproduction, the soul was imprisoned in the body. At in the state, the soul uh, entered into the state of forgetfulness. Okay, entered into a state of forgetfulness. Uh, it means that the soul doesn't remember anything about his true nature. Okay, what he possessed. He doesn't remember all those things when the soul was united in the body. Okay, we call it the sense of forgetfulness, and I already mentioned it in one of my classes that the more familiar term for us or explanation for us is the concept of reincarnation in Hinduism and Buddhism. That when man dies, his soul will be reincarnated into another body. But when his soul reincarnated into another body, the soul will not or he cannot remember anything about his past life. What he learned in his past life. Who is he in his past life? Okay? So the same case in Socrates' understanding and description about the soul, when the soul is imprisoned or united in the body, the soul will enter into the state of forgetfulness. Okay? Enter into the state of forgetfulness. And talking about immortality, immortal, that the soul is immortal, he mentioned it he mentioned it, in one of the works of Plato, in the work Republic. There's a student of Socrates who asked about soul, um, regarding to Socrates' stand about soul. And Socrates answered, haven't you realized that our soul is immortal and never be destroyed, and never destroyed? That's the question that he posed to Glaucon. And Glaucon, by his answer, like, he was surprised that Socrates answered that the soul is immortal and cannot be destroyed. Okay? Furthermore, okay, in this section, no? In Phaedo, in one of the works of Plato, also in Phaedo, this one is from Republic, and in Phaedo, apart from the question of mortality, otherwise there is the further question whether the soul, it's another question. So on Republic, Glaucon concern about immortality of the soul, and Socrates answered that the soul is immortal. On this part, on Phaedo, Socrates answered about what will happen to the soul after he dies. And before the soul was imprisoned in the body, what are the activities of the soul? So, apart from the question of mortality or otherwise, there is the further question whether the soul, if it does, have some form of existence after the person has died, still possess some power of wisdom, some power and wisdom. The question is, if the if man dies and the soul will leave its body, does the soul contain and remain his knowledge which he acquired when he was alive? Socrates say that not only that the soul is immortal, he only confirmed that the soul is immortal, but also that it contemplates truths after its separation from the body at the time of death. In short, Socrates confirmed that when the soul is separated from the body through death, okay, separated from the body after death, no, separated, yes, no, after death, the soul will go back to its more likely natural activity, which is to contemplate about the truth, or in short, to learn, to gain knowledge of the truth. Okay? To gain knowledge of the truth. So in short, before the soul, it can be also assumed that before the soul was imprisoned in the body, before the soul entered into the body during reproduction, okay, the soul actually all contained the knowledge of the truth, which is the product of his contemplations from all eternity in somehow, since the soul is immortal. Okay? It's not made up of matter which, unlike the body, it can be rotten, it can be destroyed. It is subject to change. It's mortal. Our body is mortal, but the soul is mortal. More likely, the soul has a lot of time to discuss, to analyze, to search for the truth. And in so far, in relation to the imprisonment of the soul, in short, before we gain acknowledgement, not acknowledgement, but before we become aware of what's happening in our world when we were born, actually, originally, we all know many things already before that happened. Why? Because we have the soul. And the soul contains all the knowledge which he contemplates while he was not a part of the body. Okay? Okay? That is why our task, okay, Since we are composed of body and soul, and all of the knowledge of the truth is contained in the soul, what is now our task? Our task is to contemplate and to take care of our soul. To contemplate in the sense that in order to access a little knowledge of the truth, the knowledge that we learned before our soul was imprisoned in the body, in order to unlock a little knowledge of it, a part of it, what we need to do is to contemplate. Okay? To contemplate, to meditate about ourself. It's an inward looking. It's not outward. Versus on the concept that we need to gain experience to learn about the reality of the world. Socrates don't accept the fact that we need to gain experience in order to know the reality of the world or in order to gain knowledge. For Socrates, you need only to pause, to meditate, to reflect, to examine our life in order to access that little knowledge, at least, of what's really the truth of this world, which is contained in our soul. That's why we don't need to go outside and to gain experience for Socrates. Okay? Socrates believed that you as a person should consciously contemplate, turn your gaze inward, and analyze our true nature, the values that are guiding our life. If you want to live our true nature, our true self in short, we need only to look inward. We need only to contemplate. We are already equipped with the knowledge of our true nature. It's only lacked because of that state of forgetfulness, let us say, no? State of forgetfulness when the soul was imprisoned in the body, as Plato's term. No? He added that self-knowledge would open your eyes to your true nature. Self-knowledge. Okay? Through contemplation. And when the soul and body are together, when they are together, nature assigns our body to be a slave and to be ruled, and the soul to be ruler and master. What does it mean is that we cannot run from the fact that we are composed of body and soul according to Socrates. Since man, our nature as man is composed of body and soul, who will dominate, who should rule between these two reality, body and soul, according to Socrates? It should be the soul. We should not enslave ourselves to the needs of the body. We should look for what is good for the soul according to Socrates. The soul should be our main priority, main concern in taking care of ourself. In short, we should take care more of our soul than our body. Socrates also believed that the goal of life is to be happy. Okay? And the question is, how does one to become happy? How does one become happy? It's, according to Socrates, virtuous act leads man to happiness. A virtuous man is a happy man. Okay? And what are these virtues? Some examples of these virtues are courage, temperance, prudence, justice. Because these virtues feeds our soul, our true self. Okay? These virtues feeds our soul. Okay? And it's one of the realization of our true nature, no? When we practice virtue. Okay? Good moral character, excellence. No? And according to Socrates, even death is trivial matter for the truly virtuous, because he or she has realized that the most important thing in life is the state of his or her soul. So in short, what is important is our true nature of man, which is the soul, and the acts that taken from taking care of the soul through self-knowledge and virtuous acts. Okay? So that is why, if we will ask Socrates, now what is self, Socrates? Socrates would tell us that our true self is the soul. That's why we need to understand, we need to know our true nature through self-contemplation, self-reflection, ang doing virtuous act that cultivates, nurtures our soul. Okay? And that's how we take care of our soul so that it will not be corrupted. If we focus on our body needs, bodily needs somehow. So if we go back to our original module, by the way, this is our original module. Uh, he invented the phrase "know thyself" and believed that it is the true task of philosopher. Okay, and it's connected of our search for our true self, no? Knowing thyself, searching ourselves, and accordingly, know thyself in on this module, on our module, would mean that a person must stand and live according his true to his or her true nature. Okay? And we can only, as I've told you, we can only know our true nature when we self-meditate and reflect. No? We are already equipped with that true nature. But, motingon ako, nalimtan lang nato. No? Mura siya, when we reincarnate in Buddhism and Hinduism, when man's reincarnated into another body, he was born in another body, he forget everything that experience from the past. So for Socrates, in order at least to know a little bit of knowledge of that reality about our true nature, we need only to reflect. Okay? Reflect. Ask, question, answer. We need to talk on ourselves. We need to talk to ourselves. Okay? To ask questions. Why is it this way? Ano yung man ako kinabuhi? Ano yung man? Anong dili man yung And later on, slowly, according to Socrates, we will unlock some of the truths which is contained in our soul. Okay? That's why the saying that the unexamined life is not worth living is connected on that matter. Connected into the search of our true nature, of our true self, which is contained in our soul, or our soul itself. So that is for Socrates in relation to self, in relation to what is man or who is man. Okay. So let's proceed to Plato. Plato is a student of Socrates, and in fact, he recorded the speeches of Socrates or discussion of Socrates. Muna, we know Socrates' teachings through Plato's work. Plato's work. And so that's why one of the major challenges in understanding Plato is that when or what is the division where or when can we say that this line in his work is his own philosophy, is his own thought, and not his teacher Socrates. Okay, and that is the one of the challenges in the understanding of Plato's own philosophical understanding or his own principle or philosophy. Okay, so in Phaedo, when we discussed Phaedo a while ago, okay, okay, this one. According to some critics on this literature, that on the middle of this work, Phaedo, that it is actually a work of Plato. I mean, it means that it is the idea of Plato, not his master anymore. Okay, his own idea, his own understanding of what is the discussion of soul. Okay, so on part of it is that Plato further discusses soul from his teacher Socrates that the soul has three parts. In short, that the soul is an intelligible being. Intelligible. He has the capacity, the soul has the capacity or the ability to intellectualize. Okay? Because of these parts, one of its parts is kaning rational part. Okay? So this is one by one. So the soul has three parts according to Plato. The appetitive, the appetitive, the sensual part, it's the element that enjoys sensual experience such as food, drink, and sex. The other part of the soul is rational, or our capacity to reason, intellectual part. It's the element that forbids the person to enjoy the sensual experience, the part that loves truth, hence should rule over the other parts of the soul through use of reasoning. The third is the spirited feeling. It refers to our feelings somehow. It's the element that is inclined towards reason but understands that the demands of passion or feelings, the part that loves honor and victory. So in short, in Plato's understanding of soul from his master, Socrates, that, di ba ang tao composed of body and soul? Okay? Sir, pag mga hunahuna ang tao, sir, unsa ang naghunahuna? Ang body or ang soul? Sir, pag makabati og anger, love, passion ng tao, sir, unsa ang nakabati? Ang body or ang soul? Sir, makakuha og gutom ang lawas, sir. O hawon, ang body or ang soul? If we will ask Plato of these questions, it's the soul that dictates the body. It's the soul, the master of the body. So in short, when we reason out, when we feel anger, love, when we feel hunger, thirst, and so on and the like, is actually the command of the soul. Because all these realities are part of the soul. Okay? It is like that the body is only a shell of the soul. But what commands the body to move, to feel, to reason is the soul. Okay? So that is why the self is both immaterial, kanina naka-green yung part, and material. Okay? And also, Plato discusses about the world of forms, ideas, and world of reality. That the soul is actually coming from the world of forms or ideas. And the body is, okay, yan yun siya, no? There are two realities according to Plato. Naiduha ka reality. Naiduha ka reality. If you're watching Avengers, Doctor Strange, if you're watching those Hollywood movies, it's like a parallel world. A parallel world. Okay? Kindly treat it as a parallel world. Parallel world. Nabuto ta sa parallel world ani. But to better understand this on our terms, no, especially with regards to the influence of movie, at least we can gain some insights or we can picture out it through these movies. No? Kindly understand it as parallel world. But of course, there's a difference between Plato's standing about reality with regards to parallel world in DC universe. For Plato, naiduha ka world. There are two worlds. The world of reality and the world of forms or ideas. The world of reality is the world wherein all objects, all things are subject to change, subject to mortality. So unsa man siya nga world, sir? In short, kanitong kalibutan ko asa takaron, kung si Plato paingnon ani, mo ni ang world of reality. Kano man, sir? Kay ang tanang butang dire dili permanente, subject to change. It is imperfect because for Plato and Socrates actually and for many Greek philosophers, change is part of imperfection. So in short, we are not in the state of perfect world. This is an imperfect world where everybody is subject to change, everything is subject to change, everything is subject to death. Mawala, mortal. That is the first world for Plato, the world of reality. And on the second world, which is the world of forms or ideas, it's the world where it's a perfect world. The source of all forms, the source of all reality. What do you mean by source of reality? Ana pa si Plato that unsa tong butang diri sa world of reality, di ba mo na yung world of reality, no? Katong kalibutan karon which is subject to change. Ang kani daw nga mga nakita nga naa diri is naani mga butang, naani sila sa world of forms, which is the true nature of this reality. But the nature of this reality is perfect, immutable, immortal in some sense. So in short, naadoy perfect world nga ang tanan nito mga perfecto, dili mag-change, dili mamatay, versus sa world of reality sa kalibutan karon. So if you look at it in DC universe, burag naay usa ka parallel world where ang kanitong kalibutan karon is only a copy. That's the term, copy. It's only a shadow of what is the real thing. Burag ito, mag-photocopy ta, di ba na may original copy, na po yung Xerox copy or photocopy? Ang original copy mo na ang world of forms or ideas. Then, ang photocopy, ang Xerox copy, mo na ang world of reality. Mo na itong world, which is subject to change, hanap, dili klaro, black and white, imperfect, in short. But there is a perfect copy, according to Plato, which is in the world of forms. This is a perfect world. So, ipunta sa DC universe, na in short, there is a perfect universe. Perfect universe. There's a perfect world. Okay? And if you look at it in Christianity, yung sa iba, Christianity, one of the concept of heaven, that there is a perfect place which everything is perfect, immortal, unchangeable, and that is heaven. O karon nata sa kalibutan nga mag-change, madugta. Ingana siya nga take between world of forms and world of reality. Now, with regards to our soul, sir, asa na bilong atong soul? Okay. The soul, according to Plato, is actually, its true nature belongs to the world of forms. That is why, when man dies, the soul will return to the world of forms. Because that's his true nature. That's where he came from. Anyway. Immortal. Perfect. The true nature of man. Where can we find our true nature? It's in the soul. Okay? So, nga na siya nga case. So, that's why, if you discuss about identity and the concept of the self, dili siya makita sa body. It's in the soul. The true nature, our true nature as man, our true nature of ourself is in the soul. The perfect, the material, okay? The perfect state, which contain all knowledge of the truth. So on the fourth one, sa kaninga part, bullet, he claimed that the soul mind itself is divided into three parts. The thing that I've discussed, no, on this reference. Okay. So na siya appetite, na siya will. Ang will dere, reason of course, rational part of the soul. The appetite part of the soul, the appetitive, and the spirited. Ang will mo nang spirited. And accordingly, person differs as to which part of their nature is predominant. So in short, if you live, let us say, if we live today and we focused ourselves or our energy to satisfy our body, more likely, it's the dominant of our appetite. O karon po, let us say, if we live emotionally, we are very emotional, mas nag-dominant ano nga part sa itong soul is our will or spirited or spirit. Then if we are very rational, according to Plato, uh, it's the rational part of your soul that is dominant. Now, what is the ideal for Plato that should dominate these parts of the soul? As we've discussed earlier, it should be the reason. It should be the reason that will dominate, should dominate these parts of the soul. Right? Okay. So, as you observe, Plato and Socrates somehow shared common understanding of our nature of the self. That the soul is the seat or the focal point of our true identity. It's not the body, it's the soul. Okay? So let's proceed to Saint Augustine. So Saint Augustine was called one of the doctors of the church, considered as a doctor of the church because of his contribution in understanding the dogma and doctrine of the church. That's why he is entitled with that doctor of the church. Saint Augustine was actually adopting Plato's perspective, Plato's philosophy, Plato's concept of the soul, especially. Okay, so he adopted Plato's view that the self is an immaterial but rational soul. Okay? So, same with Socrates and Plato's take of soul, that soul is immaterial. And on rational part, it's from Plato. Giving the theory of forms, the thing that I've discussed earlier, katong the world of forms and the world of reality, okay, in Christian perspective. Augustine asserted that these forms were concepts of existing within the perfect and eternal God. Katong bitaw na ko gaina that the perfect world, katong world of forms, katong perfect nga kalibutan for Plato. What happened when St. Augustine adopted these ideas? It becomes Christianized. What do you mean by Christianized? He inserted the idea of God, Christianity. That is why na siya term that the forms are concept existing within the perfect and eternal God. It's part of the reality of God. It's part of, let us say, heavenly realities where the soul belonged. Where the soul belongs. So, that's why you can see some part of Plato's philosophy from St. Augustine. And we know that he uses Plato's philosophy with regards to soul in explaining the reality of our soul in relation to our God, in Christian perspective, in Christian dogma and doctrine. Okay? And he also asserted that the self was an inner, of course, it's material, that had self-knowledge and self-awareness. Self-awareness here refers to the awareness that the soul is united and should go back to its creator, and that is God. It is able to be aware of itself. It recognizes itself as a holistic one. It is aware of its unity. That the human being who is both soul and body. So if you can still remember Socrates and Plato, almost the same dualistic perspective of man. Who is man? That is meant to tend to higher, divine, and heavenly matters because of his or her capacity to ascend and comprehend truths through the mind. So in short, our soul, our mind, is directed to that kind of unity to our divine creator. Okay? To our creator, to our God. And our soul accordingly is has that kind of awareness. So in short, if we will ask Saint Augustine, what is now self for Saint Augustine? Self for Saint Augustine has an awareness of his true nature. That part of his true nature is that divine nature. that he is created by God and will go back to God at the end of the day. No? At the end of the day. And with regards to body, what is his state, we learned in our module that he believed that body possessed senses, such as imagination, memory, and the senses can only grasp to feel the temporal objects and the material world. Of course. Ang pasabutan is that our body only learn what is made up of matter on this material world. But it cannot grasp the reality beyond matter, beyond immaterial. It's the soul that will grasp the reality beyond matter. Okay? So in short, the body cannot comprehend the idea of God, our unity with God, because the body can only perceive what is through the senses. But the senses, our bodily senses, sense of sight, seeing, cannot comprehend the idea, the reality of God. It's the mind, it's the soul, okay, that will comprehend our unity with God. It's the material soul. So muna ang in short, uh, you distinguish the the function of the body and the soul, no? The limitation of the body and the the nature of the soul in some sense. Okay, so that is for Saint Augustine with regards to what is man, who is man, what is self, and so on. Okay, so let's proceed to Rene Descartes. Okay, Rene Descartes. Okay, Rene Descartes. He arrived on this famous line, cogito ergo sum, or I think therefore I am. He arrived on this line due to his process of what we call hyperbolic metaphysical doubt. What do you mean by metaphysical doubt? Actually, it's a kind of skepticism, a kind of doubting everything, including existence. Doubting, what do you mean? Kana kung mag-doubt ka, tinuod ba niya ang kalibutan? Tinuod ba ko? Wala ba ko nagdamgo? Tinuod ba niya ko nakita? That's doubt. No? And so, Descartes started with that process before he arrived on the line, I think, therefore I am. So, in the end, he what he arrives that he can doubt everything. Okay? He can doubt everything, especially those things that can be perceived by the senses. Descartes doubt everything. No? Nakadungog ko? Tama ba ko nadungog? Tama ba ko nakita? No? But, one thing that he cannot doubt is that he think, he thinks. The mere fact that he is doubting, that he is thinking, he cannot doubt that. No? Sa pa, bro, for the mere fact na nangutana ka, naa ka. Kay kung wala ka, dili ka makapangutana. Nga na bitaw siya nga sa Binisaya ba? For the mere fact nga nangutana ka, nagpasabot ana, naa ka, nag-exist ka. Kay kung wala ka nag-exist, dili mo ka makapangutana. Okay? So that is why the focal point of his search is that I can doubt everything, but I cannot doubt my own existence. For the mere fact that I am thinking. That's why I think, therefore I am. Okay? Descartes proved that there is a thinking entity that is doing the act of doubting. And that is the thinking entity. No? Thinking thing. No? We call that thinking thing. Okay? Now, how about the self? How do you define self? Now, from that, he doubt everything. Gawa sa conclusion nga, he cannot doubt that he is thinking. For the mere fact that he is doubting, he is thinking. Now, what is self? It is constant, it's not prone to change, and it's not affected by time. That's how we define self. Only the immaterial soul remains same throughout time. If you are wondering, whether he was born around 14th or 15th century, I forgot. No? So let's search. René Descartes, kasi sa tao. Because I need to find the time gap. Okay? 15th century. Tama ko. 15th century. He was born around this time, 15th century, 1596. Okay. So balik ta. So if you look at the gap of body soul the concept of body and soul dualism about man, nakaabot pa siya kang Descartes nga case, no? That in fact, Rene Descartes believed that man is composed of body and soul. But the thing that we learn through our body, through our senses, cannot be trusted. It cannot be trusted. That's why it's not important. And the thing that we learn through our body, through our senses. Okay? But the thinking thing, which is part of the soul, what ang source of that seat of our true nature. Only the immaterial soul remains the same throughout the time. The immaterial soul is the source of our identity. Okay? So, if you look at it, nay mga nadungag from Socrates, from Plato, from Saint Augustine, nay nadungag, but nay the same sila about talking about soul, but nay nadungag na concept. Nay nadungag concept about thinking soul. As I've told you that we are discussing one thing but on a different angle, different perspective. We are looking on the same thing, self, but we are looking it on a different perspective. That's why we come up with different understanding of our nature as man. So the soul, okay, distinction of the soul and body from Descartes. Soul is conscious, thinking substance that is unaffected by time. So, wala siya in terms of time and space, soul is a subject to time. It is known only itself on itself. Only you know your own mental event, and others cannot correct your mental state. It is not made up of parts. It's not made of parts like body. It views the entity of itself with no hidden or separate compartments. It's both conscious and aware of itself at the same time. Aware, ano aware man sir? If you're asking, ano aware man ng self to our own nature? Kaya katulaging thinking, when you think, it's also somehow awareness that you are a thinking thing. Nga ikaw o sa kabutang nga nagahuna-huna. Now, about the body, it's made up of matter. Okay? It changes through time. So, may balik yapon to kang concept ni Socrates, kang Plato. It can be doubted. Okay? It can be doubted. Because in meditation, in the work of Descartes in meditation, gidoubt niya iyang body. Okay, kasi one of the questions there is that how can you differentiate dreaming from reality? How can you assert that you are now is awake and not dreaming? So in short, the things that we perceive through our senses cannot be trusted. Ano pa si Plato? Ano pa si Descartes rather. Okay? So, na yung mga deception. Kaingon tag init pero dili di ay. Kaingon ta og kanang kanang ibutang bitaw nato ang ball pen or stick sa usa ka cup of water, yan ay water ba no? Then makita na murang nag-bend in science. Of course, in science na explanation ng anong murang mag-bend because of the refraction of the light, mag-bend siya. But during that time wala pa may explanation na. No? So in short, our body, our sense of sight cannot be trusted because if you take that thing outside of that cup with water, straight man siya, pero kung ibutang nimo siya, magbura man siya dili sumpay, no? Kindly do that experiment. Kana pong cup of water, kana pong cup nga transparent para ma-observe ninyo nga dili siya magtunong ang stick nga ibutang or kanang papel, kanang lapis or kanang ballpen. Dili siya magtunong. Okay? Of course, in science na yung explanation. Okay? It's made of physical or quantifiable, divisible parts. That's the body. Okay? That's the body. So, what is self? We'll go back to our concept of the self. What is self for René Descartes? Is that it's a thinking self. It's a thinking self. But what then I am? I am a thinking thing, a thinking self. It has been said that what is a thinking thing? It's a thing that doubts, understand, affirms, denies, wills, refuses, imagines also, and perceives. That is the thinking thing. So what is self? A self is a thinking thing. That is for Rene Descartes. A thinking thing. For David Hume, what is the concept of Hume regards to self? Hume rejected the idea of immateriality. Kana bitaw that we have an innate idea of the self. The same with Socrates and Plato. No, wala siya mituana. For Hume, because that's with regards to reason, no? By the way, si Descartes, rationalism, kang Descartes na explanation of the self is about rationalism, the importance of reason, the primacy of reason. But for David Hume, no, it's not about the primacy of reason, but we learn our identity through our experience, human experiences. So he, in short, he's a empiricist. Empiricism is the idea that the origin of all knowledge is coming from our sense experience. Take note, if we go back to Socrates, Plato, and Descartes, that body doesn't contribute to our self-knowledge of ourself or identity. But for David Hume, no. All of our knowledge, including our knowledge of the self, is coming from the experience. Okay? And for Hume, he describes self or person as a bundle or a collection of different perceptions that are moving in a very fast, successive manner. Therefore, it is a perpetual flux or perpetual movement. So in short, self is a collection of experience if you define that way. Our self, who we are now, is a collection of our experiences, especially of the past and the present. Naingani ta, nganong naingani ko, nganong butan ko, nganong ko ingani ka character, it's because of your experiences. Okay? It's because of your experiences. Okay? So that's the difference now between other philosophers and David Hume. Okay? The importance of experience in in understanding ourselves. Okay? If you want to understand yourself, if you want to understand ourselves, just look up on your experiences, on our experiences, the current and the past experiences. Okay? Because that's makes who you are today. Okay, so let's proceed to Hilbert Ryle. Hilbert Ryle, time check, 47 minutes na ta. Hilbert Ryle. Okay. Wala naman siya. Hilbert Ryle, he was born in 19th century. No? In one of his work, the concept of mind, he wrote there that he rejected the notion of mental state that are separable from the physical state. It only affirms, in short, dili siya pareha og idea kang Socrates, Plato, even in Saint Augustine and Descartes. Kay kang sa katong mga philosophers, naman go distinction ang body ug soul. They are distinct. And in regards to some importance, in fact, ang body is not so important, no? In those philosophers. But for Hilbert Ryle, our mental state, or let us say soul, is not separated. Its reality is not separated from the body. When you talk about identity, you cannot but also mention our body. We need also to give importance to our bodily experiences. Gawa sa mental state, our reasoning for that instance. Okay? So, what is the point of Ryle? That the relation between mind and body are not isolated process, unlike Socrates, Plato. No? They are isolated. No? Because when man thinks, tries to understand his nature, it's the soul that tries to understand. It's the act of the soul. It's not the body. When you pause and reflect, it's the act of the soul. When you doubt, in Descartes, when you doubt and when you think, it's the act of the soul. It's not the act of the body. But for Ryle, no. The function of the mind or soul and body are not isolated. They are in one place. They are doing it simultaneously. Mental processes are intelligent acts and not are distinct from each other. The operation of the mind is itself an intelligent act. The mind here refers to a part of our body, okay, especially brain. No? Where do we get our sense of self, according to Ryle? Okay, Ryle asserted that it is from our behaviors and actions. It's not about what we think, because when we go back to once again Socrates, Plato, and Descartes, even Augustine, what we think is that what makes us who we are. Okay, what's in our soul, that what makes us who we are. It's the soul, what we think, part of our soul, the thinking, the rational part. Kang Descartes, the thinking thing. But for Ryle, it's not that kind of how we define ourselves. We define ourselves in view to our action. Our actions define who we are. Okay? Defines who we are. It's not about what we think. Even we think that we are good, but if our actions do otherwise, no, you are not good, because your action speaks who you are, rather than the thing that you imagine in your mind, which is opposite to your actions. So in short, for Ryle, it's the manifestation yourself is can be gleaned or can be known through your action. Kung butan ta, maginoo ta, respectful ta, it can be observed through our actions. It can be observed through our actions. Okay? So that is for Hilbert Ryle. Okay. Kang Merleau-Ponty. Ah, Merleau-Ponty. He argued that the body is part of the mind and the mind is part of the body, mind. The mind perceives what the body is sense experience from external world, then the body acts out of what the mind perceives. So, if you look at it, na ipagkapareho sila kang Hilbert Ryle, no? With regards to the importance of the body. The importance of the body in defining who we are. Okay? So that's why Merleau-Ponty, he defines self as the idea of self as an embodied subjectivity. Embodied subjectivity. The term embodied here refers to give a body to, for example, substance, like soul. Subjectivity here refers to the state of being subject, an entity that possesses consciousness, conscious experience, feelings, perspective. That's subjectivity. And of course, he rejected the Cartesian, also balik Cartesian, diling Cartesian, even Socrates, kung he disregard Descartes. Cartesian here refers to Descartes' philosophy, mind-body dualism. He insisted that the mind and body are intrinsically connected. Intrinsically connected. The same with Ryle, no? Assertion of Ryle, that is inseparable, okay? In connected. And he affirmed that the center of our consciousness is the mind. No? The mind. So, nagay importance sa mind, no? Throughout if you observe throughout our discussion, na importance sa mind, reason, thinking, soul. Okay? Silingan ang mga, they are closely related ng mga concepts. Mind, soul, thinking thing, reasoning. Because kaning mind, if we will ask Socrates, Plato, Sir, Plato, Socrates, asin ay makita si mind? Kung pangutan na to Socrates, Plato, it's part of the soul. It's part of the soul, no? It's not part of the body, it's part of the soul. He added that the body is not a mere house where the mind resides or where the soul resides. If we um, adopt Plato and Socrates teaching that mind is part of the soul. Because Socrates and Plato once again believe that the body is only a shell, an extension of the soul. But what dictates to move, to feel, to reason is it's the soul. It's the action of the soul. It's not the action of the body per se, but it's the action of the soul. The soul is the prime master of the body. Body is only a shell. But for Mario Ponti, yes, no, that the body is not only a mere shell, a mere house of the mind or the soul. Rather, it's through the lived experience of the body that you perceive. It is it's through the help, it's through your body that you feel pain, that you see, that you experience, that you feel anger when you experience other people, when you encounter other people. It's the body that feels all these things. It's not the soul. So that is why there's he reject the idea that the soul and body is distinct. What he asserted is that the body and soul is interconnected from each other. They are not separate or distinct identity of the reality of ourselves. And actually, they are conforming with that identity that we need, more likely, the soul or the mind and the body. The mind that thinks, that perceives, and the body that experience, no? That interact with the world. The mind cannot interact the world, but the body can interact. That's why the embodied subjectivity, the embodied subjectivity, the importance of the body that becomes the medium to interact with the world, and the mind that process the conscious part, the intellectual part of ourself. He argued that the body is part of the mind and the mind is part of the body. So in short, walay distinction. Silang duha is parte gyud sila. Dili sila bulag nga reality. Unlike Socrates, Plato, even Saint Augustine, and even Descartes. Okay? So, the body acts what minds perceive. Mo na, unsay i-command sa ato ang mind, no? Unsay i-command sa mind, mo akbot si body because they are interrelated. They are connected. Okay? They are connected. That's why when we try to define ourselves, we cannot run from the fact, according to Marlo Ponti, that our physical body is part of our definition of who we are. Okay? Why? Because it's the body that connects us, that connects the mind with the physical world. It's the body that interacts with the world. Okay? So, I believe that's all for the philosophical perspective of the self with regards to our discussion, understanding the self. As I've told you, as you observe from Socrates, Plato, even Saint Augustine, even in Descartes, they don't explicitly use the term self, but they use the other thing, the other term. Normally, they use the term man. What is man? Who is man? And later on na lang define ng self, identity, later na siya, as I've told you, in the in my earlier discussion. Okay? So, don't be confused. You may understand it as man is equivalent to self, as equivalent to identity at this point. Kindly understood it that way para di mo malibog. Kindly understand the concept that the term man is equivalent to self, is equivalent to identity. Okay? So, kindly understand it that way. Para di mo malibog. Okay? So, man is equivalent to self, identity. Okay? So, thank you very much, guys. Hopefully, oh, by the way, regards to your questions, of course, um, kindly reserve it and share it and open it during our regular meeting online. So while you are listening on this pre-recorded video, kindly take note of your questions and you may raise it afterwards, especially during our regular meeting online class. Thank you very much and have a nice day, everyone. God bless you all. Keep safe.